Welcome back to It's Okay Garage. Popped out of town a little bit to work on this 2006 Kia Spectra, and today we are going to be replacing the head. So first off, start off with draining that radiator, get all that coolant drained out. Once you get the radiator drained, next step is we're going to pop off the hood, two 12 bolts on each side, and then I'm going to cut this windshield wiper fluid hose right there, and just go ahead when you put it back together, put a vacuum line hose in there. Go ahead and remove the battery, for safety reasons. It needs to come out anyways. Then the next step is we're going to pop out the air box. So undo that. Okay, you get the air box and battery taken off, hood taken off, and then you got 3 12s down in here for the rest of the air box. So go ahead and pull that guy out. Next, I'm going to pull the coil pack off. Might as well take all the coils out to get down to that. So that's going to be a couple 12s. After that, I'm going to pull the power steering pump off. You got a 14 here and a 14 down over here on the bottom side of this. Pull that off, push it up out of the way over here. Now I'm going to take this top of the timing cover off with these 410s. Okay, once you get those taken off, I'm going to take this throttle cable off, unhook it from the throttle body, undo the 10s. Pull it out of the way, and then I'm going to move on to this fuel rail. It's a little bit easier to take the fuel rail off now. You got a 12 here, and then you got the 2 10s over here for the main fuel line coming up, and then you can pull those out. Once you get that taken off, we're going to pull this valve cover off. You got a bunch of 10s around it. Pop those off. Pop off your hose lines over here. After that, going to move on to the intake manifold. You got a couple 12s up top and a couple underneath, so there should be 8 in total. You got the intake manifold nuts taken off. To take this throttle body housing off, you got these 2 12s, one here and one here, but you're going to want to break this hose off first for the crossover. So go ahead and undo that first and then take that off. That'll pull all these hoses off and away, and then you can take the intake manifold and push it back. Okay, now I got the intake manifold and throttle body taken off and pushed back out of the way. Move on to this exhaust heat shield. You got 4 12s to take off. Once you take those off, you got the 9 14s that'll go around the exhaust manifold. Once you do that, you should be able to pull it forward. And then we also got to take these 3 14s off. This whole bracket, you want to take it off to be able to pull the head off. So we're going to pull that off as well when we do that. To get the exhaust manifold all the way out, you have these 2 bolts underneath. They're 2 17s. Got to undo that 17 and the other one on that side. We're going to put the timing in place from the before. So the best way to do that is basically be straight up with your one here. There's a hole in the back. But for your tensioner, they come with these tensioner pins. And essentially it looks like that when it's put in, and then you can use that same pin to line this up. So you just line that up and you put it in the notch back there. So there's a notch right there that it lines up in, and that's how you know you're in time. Pull that pulley off with that 17 right there. Pull the whole pulley, set it down to the side, and then we will move on to breaking the head bolts loose. Time to pull the head off. You got 10 head studs, 5 on each side. These 2 taller one uppers are going to be 10 millimeter hex, and all of these lower ones are going to be 8 millimeter hexes. So let's go ahead and break those loose, and I would recommend doing like 1 2 or 1 and 2. Cross your things when you're loosening them up so you won't warp your head. Okay, looking at the head, you can see that these 3 cylinders have been burning pretty good with that nice tan burning. This one obviously isn't burning, so to us it looks like this valve is bent. So we're going to test that by putting some fluid in there. So basically you put some up in there and you see it pour out there. That means there's definitely a bent valve somewhere. Okay, now that you got the head pulled off, go ahead and clean all your surface off for the head gasket and all that. Now that you got the block all cleaned up, go ahead and throw that head gasket on. Make sure you got that on properly. Make sure everything all lines up. After that, go ahead and put the head on. Once you torque these head bolts down, I started from the center and then cross. Torqued it to 45. Online it says to turn torque to 22 and then 2 90-degree turns, but taking them off, the torque reads around 45. Put the timing belt on, like I said before. Make sure your timing mark is all lined up and you got your tensioner for your timing belt tight. So now go ahead and install exhaust manifold on and intake manifold back on. Once you get both those manifolds on, go ahead and move over to this thermostat housing. Make sure you get the gasket in there. Okay, got that thermostat housing on. Now we're gonna put the O2 sensor on and tighten it down. We're gonna slide on the exhaust shield through there. Put that on all the way, and then we're gonna move on to this fuel rail. Okay, now that everything's kind of all buttoned up here, fuel rail's back on and all the plugs are plugged back in besides for the coil pack. We're gonna move on to doing the valve cover and coil pack. If you're putting a new head on or whatnot, if it's dry, make sure you put oil on all these cams, and I would recommend getting it on the chain just so it's smooth sailing when you start it and you don't end up burning a crank out. And then probably jack it up and put the brace up to your intake manifold and then the 2 for the exhaust. Okay, I gotta swap over spark plugs and then I'll put the coil pack on. And then right now I'm putting the power steering back on. Now that you got the underneath taken care of, go ahead and put this air box back in. Go ahead and throw the battery back in, top off your fluid, and then you are good to start it. Now you got everything put back together, you're good to start it up. Check for leaks. Look at that. Sounds like it's running like it should. You can get the hood back on after you top everything off. I would do an oil change in 100 miles or so if you do a fresh head, or in general, depends on what you do. That's how we replaced the head on the Kia Spectra. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next videos.